Hey, Mr. Mayor, we are recording.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Good evening, everyone, and welcome. Now call to order the regular council meeting of Tuesday, September 6, 2022. Public input. The meeting is now open to statements from no more than 5 members of the public of no more than 2 minutes length each. Anyone wish to provide public input? Here none. I'll move to item 3. That regular council meet, any late additions or deletions for our agenda?
Mr. Mayor, there is one piece of correspondence from Brittany Lang, Brad Biz, that didn't make it onto the correspondence agenda, so it'll be attached to the correspondence report to be removed if any council wishes to discuss it along with the other correspondence items.
So will that be under 9.7 or the
That'll be in the 9.1 with the rest of the correspondence items.
okay. Need someone to move that the September 6th regular council meeting agenda be adopted as amended? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Leach. Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now move, we have a delegation by Sergeant Clay with an RCMP update.
Sergeant Clay, you may turn on your camera and your microphone at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Council. I appreciate the opportunity to appear before you virtually here this afternoon. Apologize that I couldn't make it down the road. It's been another busy day in the office here. I just want to provide a brief update on where we are year to date with the office here running as the combined Lytton and Lillooet detachment. So right now we're looking at a combined total of 1,845 files, calls for service within that combined area. And again, just as a point of reference here, the area that once was Lillooet expanded in with the geographical boundaries going now down to Jackass, out to Shacken, and halfway between Ashcroft and Spence's Bridge. Of the 1,845 files that we've had taking us to the end of August, approximately 400 of those files are actually in what was the old Lytton detachment area. So we're not seeing a huge increase in calls for service or workload coming into the detachment now. In fact, we've actually kind of supplemented our local operations by being able to utilize the remaining detachment members from Lytton along with the office support staff. So currently we're showing a full complement of staff in Lillooet. So that is 5 constables. We lost one, but we just received a new member here 3 weeks ago. Myself and then Corporal Denise Benfield. Tomorrow is Corporal Benfield's last day in the office. She is transferring to the Ashcroft detachment here at the end of September. So she's going to take a couple weeks of R&R and then assume her new post as the operations NCO in Ashcroft. She will be a huge loss to this detachment and to this community, but thankfully she'll just be an hour down the road. So she's free to be called upon if we need her for her local knowledge or expertise. I am happy to report that we have a replacement already identified for Denise. We have a experienced corporal coming in out of Surrey. He's got 18 years of experience, background in GD policing, community crime prevention policing, crime reduction, and like what we would call guns and gangs, basically. So street crew, and most recently working with their special O, which is surveillance and tactical support operations. So Bill's coming in with a wide knowledge base and experience base. All of his service has been in Surrey, so this is the first time he'll have done what I'll call small town policing. But Lillooet was an ask for him. He has a family connection to Cayush, and as I understand it, he has an uncle who lives just down near Conway Park. So him and his wife are looking forward to getting here. My hope is I'll have them in post before Christmas. So we will be running a short vacancy of that position, but I do have my senior constable, Constable Jan Roofley, who will be filling in for Denise. And for those of you that know Jan, this is his second time in Lillooet. He came back here a couple of years ago to keep working the community. Him and his wife loved it so much. So I am comfortable that we are adequately staffed to be able to keep meeting the needs and the mandate in the community. Lytton still remains a challenge, I guess I'll say. We've had some setbacks and delays with our temporary office going in down there. I am hoping now that we're going to put shovels in the ground here next week to get the services established. We're on a timeline to having an office running down there by the end of October. The office is being built right now in Langley and will be modular and shipped up here in the coming weeks. I am losing some staff down there here this month and again later in the year. But I am working with RCMP staffing and Southeast District to make sure that that we have adequate backfill in place so that we're not going to be drawing on our Lillooet members to support ongoing Lytton operations. We did buy another house in Lytton the other day for a member. I'm hoping to staff up. The problem that I've run into right now, and I'm not really sure how we're going to navigate this yet, is we were on track to continue buying houses in Lillooet for our remaining members here. We still need 3 houses for our existing establishment. The purchasing of staff houses in Lillooet has been put on hold, as has the review and the planning for the replacement detachment for Lillooet. So I just wanted to make the council aware of that. I do know we have an election coming up, and I understand that some of you won't be in this room in a few months, but I just wanted this room to be aware that that those projects have been put on hold, and just for you guys to have that situational awareness. With that, I am free to take any direct questions you guys may have.
Thank you, Sergeant Clay. Any questions, comments from council? None?
Sorry.
Councilor Paul.
Hello.
Hi.
I do have one question just in regards to the project being placed on hold. Is there any information you can share with us about why?
So as I understand it, we're kind of into the priorities and availability of funding. And I mean, I can't speak a lot to that because a lot of that is discussed at a much higher level than me as your detachment commander. But I do know that as we look at something like Lytton, for example, because the question I asked them is, well, you know, Lytton just got, you know, $70 million for, you know, infrastructure and government buildings. Apparently, we're not included in that funding. That's a separate funding model completely. So until they actually get Lytton reestablished, the likelihood of being able to, or plans reestablished in Lytton, I guess, for the housing, because we lost 3 houses plus the detachment. Until they actually have that funding figured out, the likelihood of us having the funding to continue buying houses or explore the replacement of the detachment here is likely going to be on hold. But again, that's, you know, the finer points of that are well above my my sphere of influence or my my level of responsibility.
If I could add, oh, sorry. If I could add, Sergeant Clay, we got a commitment from the province, RCMP, that we would receive 7 units, whether they are purchased or built. We get that from them in writing as a follow-up to our call. In any event, that was been committed to us, I think. It behooves us to get hold of the appropriate people down there and say, okay, what's going on? So we'll carry that forward.
No, I appreciate that. And if there's something I can do to help you or your senior management, get that redelivered back, I definitely will, because the housing, housing is always difficult in small posts. And if there's one thing I've learned in 20 years of policing and almost 10 years of being a detachment commander is once you have buy-in and support, you got to run with it while you can, just in case something like this happens. So I'm glad. Thank you for bringing that up. And yeah, let's keep pushing that along.
Well, we got a commitment from the senior level and we'll just nudge them to say we want that commitment completed. So we'll carry it forward. Any other
Thank you.
questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I appreciate that.
Any more comments? Good report. Sergeant Clay, appreciate the efforts of you here and your leadership as well as the rest of the group. And it's comforting to know that our detachment is pretty much up to speed. I think has that your air coverage been increased as of late, or was it always that way between Lytton?
So that coverage increase was as a result of us putting the two detachments together. So one of the guys worked it out to roughly 12,000 square kilometers. If we look at Braylor and Goldbridge to Jackass to Duffy to Shacken, roughly to halfway between Ashcroft and Lillooet, Marble Canyon. One of the saving graces I will say that we have here is that some of that area is primarily covered by tribal, and they spend a fair amount of time on some of those roads getting to their communities, so they're able to kind of pick up some of that slack, especially on 99 North, where we have the highway, but they have Pavilion and Fountain and Marble, and they're on the road so much, so we don't need to go down there that often because they just deal with everything on the highway for us. But I am going to keep the Lillooet and Lytton establishments as full as I possibly can, simply to make sure that we have that adequate coverage. So what we do run is 2 members on shift in what was the Lillooet area and 2 members on shift in what was the Lytton area. So the likelihood of having your Lytton members down in, your Lillooet members down in Lytton when a call comes in Lillooet is very minimal. The only time we would see that is if there was a major event down there. And that's no different than what we would have had, pre-fire and pre-amalgamation. So as long as we can keep the establishment numbers topped up or as topped up as possible, we should see minimal to no impact in local service delivery in each of the communities.
Mind you, I would expect that you should consider crying more wounded than what you are with regard to the coverage that you've got. Maybe counselors, that's something you can bring up at UBCM, but maybe a helicopter is in order together with emergency services. No, seriously, think about it. That's something, plant the seed and let's pursue forward. Given our geographical location, the usage of a helicopter amongst our emergency services is there.
I did ask for one when they asked me to do this job, and what I would need in order to be able to police this whole area with Lillooet establishment only. I told them a helicopter and 2 pilots. So I've already thrown that out there and I got shot down pretty quick.
Again, thank you, Sergeant Clay.
Thank you very much. And as always, I am available in person, by phone or email if anybody in the room needs to speak to me directly or wants to reach out on other topics.
Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move to item 5.1, a public hearing regarding Z22-003 East Lillooet Rec Society property motorsports facility. I'll now call the public hearing of September 6th to order. And I will remind everyone I'm required to read these comments as per section 464 of the Local Government Act. District of Lillooet bylaw number 2022-016. The proposed bylaw and related information, including written comments received to date, if any, is available as part of the agenda package for review. At this public hearing, all persons wishing to speak will be given an opportunity to be heard. However, I ask that all who speak at this meeting restrict their remarks to matters contained in the bylaw. Those wishing to speak at this public hearing commence the remarks by stating their name, and that written comments be submitted to the staff table before closure of this public hearing. I would like to remind everyone present that those in attendance who choose to speak should be free to do so without comment, support, or derision from the gallery. The purpose of the public hearing is for council to hear everyone's opinion on the subject at hand to help in their decision-making process. To that end, I ask that members of the gallery forego cheering, clapping, comments of support, booing, jeering, and disparaging comments. Everyone should feel free and comfortable to make their representations to council. Mr. Taylor, would you please outline the specifics of the proposed bylaw?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I did have a typo on your introduction there. It is bylaw 2022-014, not 016. My apologies. So bylaw 2022-014 is proposing to add a site-specific use to a portion of the property known as the East Lillooet Rec property for use as a motocross track. The definition of motorsports facility, which means land, buildings, or structures used for the purpose of racing automobiles, motorcycles, go-karts, and other motorized vehicles, and other uses accessory to motor vehicle racing, is proposed to be the use added to this lot within the specified area shown on the draft bylaw. We've also included noise restrictions in the bylaw to mirror the nuisance bylaw hours for construction, being quiet hours between 10 p.m. and 7 a.m., except Saturday night, which is 9 p.m. to 9 a.m. on Sunday morning. The district has received 31 responses to our request for public comment. All 31 were in favor, with a single one asking that the hours of operation be shortened, being 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday to Friday and 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Saturday. Should council wish to amend the hours at this stage, it would involve rescinding second reading and holding another public hearing. Staff would recommend passing the bylaw as is, and should noise become a problem within the existing framework, council could direct staff to further amend the bylaw to change the hours at that point. Thank you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Have any written submissions been received since the agenda has been published?
No, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you. I now declare the public hearing open. At this time, I ask if there is anyone who wishes to speak to the proposed bylaws. After you have spoken once, I would ask that you wait until all other members of the public have had the opportunity to be heard before speaking a second time. If you would come forward to the lecture to speak, anyone so wishing. Say it again. Is there anyone who wishes to speak further to the proposed bylaw? For a third and final time, is there anyone who wishes to speak further to the proposed bylaw? Hearing none, I declare this public hearing closed. Asking a counselor to recommend the public hearing agenda that all written and verbal communications regarding bylaw number 2022-014 up to and including September 6th be received and the public hearing be closed at this time. Who moves? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Weave. Any further discussion? Hearing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. I'll return to the regular meeting. Item 6, adoption of the minutes. Someone to move that the July 12th, 2022 public hearing reports be adopted as presented. Move Councillor Reed, second Councillor Leach. Any errors or omissions? Noted. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Someone also moved that the August 9th, 2022 regular council meeting minutes be adopted as presented. Counselor Hopeful, second Counselor Howe. Any errors or omissions? Hearing none, call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Move to item 9, correspondence. Is there anyone that wishes to have any one or number of these 7 core pieces of correspondence to be lifted for discussion? Counselor Howe, Counselor Hopeful.
Yes, I would like to remove correspondence reference number 270585, the additional one to.
Okay. Anyone else? Hearing none, will someone please move that the correspondence included in the information reported dated September 2nd, 2022 be received for information less item number 9.7 as outlined by Councillor Hopkins. Who moves? Councillor Howe, second Councillor Leach. Further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Oh, we will. Councillor Hopkins,
Yes.
you want this for discussion now?
Oh, now? I thought we were gonna move it.
Then we'll go on to item
18.1.
18.1 later in the
18.1.
Sorry, 7.1 later.
Okay. Okay. Move to reports and presentations of staff, 11.1, source water strategy report. Welcome, Mr. Darling.
Mr. Mayor, councilors, usually I would present this report, but we're fortunate tonight to have Bob Carrasco here, who is the author of the report. He has other clients in town and he scheduled his time so he could be here for this meeting. Just a short introduction. Bob is a professional engineer and the owner of Agua Consulting Services Inc., which specializes in water consulting services. Bob is result-oriented individual who creates practical and cost-effective solutions to a variety of water issues. And when I say cost-effective, I emphasize that because he really does do cost-effective work. Bob's dedication to including and listening to public works employees, management teams, and councils makes him a valuable asset to local government's decision-making process. And just a few, I've worked with Bob for 28 years. And that makes me old and him old, I guess. But a few of the things that he has done, and I'm just naming a few, is water master plans, studies, reports, strategies, water modeling, domestic and irrigation water separation, capital projects, and subdivision and development servicing bylaw amendments. And so I'd just like to give the floor to Bob and let him talk to you about his report.
Thank you,
Thank
Mr.
you.
Darling.
Yep.
Welcome.
Thank you for having me, Mr. and councilors. Don asked me, he brought me in early in the spring to look at your water system. And that's when we realized that there was a lot of questions in direction of where the district should go with developing additional water sources. And you had a number of different sources available. You had a number of different sources already developed, and it was a matter of getting all of the sources focused so that in the future, Lillooet has clear direction of where they want to go with water supply. You have demands and stresses from neighboring Indian bands. You've got potential growth on the horizon again. And the other thing that's happening now across the province is all of the climate change that's happening right now. The intense storms and usually followed by drought and then forest fire. This very damaging cycle. And having enough water is one of the things that communities can do to insulate and protect themselves and really watch out for their citizens. So that's one of the things that's integrated into this report that we just completed. So that being the question, where to invest next in your water supply, we looked at what you had for infrastructure, and there is no perfect answer. There's a lot of angst and history with people loving the gravity supply. I run a very large water utility in Kelowna, Black Mountain Irrigation District, and the history of water supply there is all tied to gravity supply, and you have that here. You have options for gravity supply. The old people, the historical, with historical knowledge of the systems, that's very valuable for community. When you can carry that knowledge forward. And we interviewed, we went around the community, we interviewed some of the older residents that have a history of the water supply. And we listened to them, and they've reviewed the report. They've given us comments. We've gone through cycles with them on the report. And in looking at everything, we looked at, I think, 9 sources, including Seton River, including Cayuga Creek, Town Creek, Dickey Creek, infiltration wells, recreation wells here, and your existing water treatment plant. And there is no perfect solution on what to do. So what you're trying to do is steer and find things that work with what you have and maintain the investment that you have. You have a very large investment on the existing water treatment plant. So you don't want to throw that away and ignore maintaining and looking after that. That's a very valuable piece of infrastructure for your community. And what we did is we took those 9 sources, we shortlisted them to the ones that made the most sense to spend money on. And they shortened down to Town Creek, Dickey Creek, expanding the infiltration wells, and also reinvesting and expanding the water treatment plant. And those are the 4 best options. That's where you should focus the water supply. We discounted some of the others because they would be duplications of these simpler solutions. So we did a life cycle costing, and the life cycle costing is done so that you can do comparative estimates between the options, considering what it costs to operate these facilities. The water treatment plant is expensive to operate because you've got to treat it, and you've got the capital cost to expand, plus the operational cost of having to pump from far down below up to the top. The Town Creek is very cheap to run if the water quality is good, if the raw water quality in Town Creek is good, meaning if it's clear enough. And every spring, if the freshet comes along, it's not clear enough. So you've got that source maybe 10 months a year. So after going through everything, we narrowed it down to 2 options that were basically to expand the infiltration gallery wells, which you can use year round. And if you expand closer sort of to where the fan and the Seton River heads out and intersects with the Fraser River, when you get close to that area, that's where it makes a lot of sense. There should be a very strong aquifer in there to give you year-round water. So between that and then using a gravity supply on Town Creek, those are 2 significant sources that are worth investing in. There's challenges right now with the whole Seton River watershed because BC Hydro is flowing more water down from the neighboring watershed. And that all originates from the Bridge Glacier, and in the Bridge Glacier, they've got a very fine powder silt. That fine powder silt, it doesn't settle out quickly. It doesn't settle out Seton Lake. It flows through Seton Lake and comes down the river, and it's still there. And they get a silt and sand bed loading at the treatment plant that they battle with. So that's why it's good to have the alternate sources. So the report is fairly clear in terms of speaking on how we got there and what we did. And it has recommendations. Dawn is written in the council report recommendations. So I'll leave it at that, and I'll take questions if you have questions or you'd like discussion on the wires.
Thank you. Any questions, comments from councilors? Councilor Reed?
Yes, like I said at the last council meeting, I think it's the first time that I actually read, not the first water strategy report we've had, or that I've had sitting on council, but it's the first one that I've read from cover to cover, actually in one afternoon, and actually understood it. Like, it was very straightforward from the layman's perspective, instead of all these other wordings that I'm like, well, what the hell is that? Now I gotta look back 14 pages to see what they're talking about. And I absolutely love the idea of explaining, and like I say, why the water meters and this, that, and the other thing, that was part of the grant, and talking to, I really appreciate that you talked to older people in town that have their ideas and their whatever, and they, things have seemed to settle down since this report. I think all of council would be in agreement with that. For a few years there, it was pretty volatile here about the water system, and to break it down like this as to what it's gonna cost us to do this, that, and the other, and you know, that Town Creek is the number one. It just, I really appreciate the report. Thank you.
Councillor Hopple.
Yes, through the mayor. I also thought it was a really good report. I really enjoyed it. And I attended the public meeting and I was kind of disappointed that a lot of people didn't show up. Like there was hardly anybody here. And that was too bad because it is so informative. The one thing I'd like to see is I'd like to see BC Hydro invited to the next meeting. I think they should be involved in these discussions and I think they should know, you know, our whole water situation, how it came to be and where it's going with respect to what they're doing too. But thank you very much. And I am so happy to see Town Creek Watershed at the top of the list. So happy. Good job.
There's an emotional tie I think people have to their water sources historically, and there is in every community. It's it's so important and people, you know, there is apathy. There's always apathy when
Right.
public because they're busy on whatever. But I learned a lot from Chief Edwards on the BC Hydro information because she communicates to them, I think, fairly regularly.
Yes.
And she had information and maps and you know, contributed to the report here. And she had options that she was offering on wells that didn't really fit in. So because it was a duplication of what you have already. So you know, we met with more than just people on time. We met with First Nations as well.
No, that was well done. Good job.
Any other questions, comments? Council? Thank you. We have a staff recommendation in 3 parts. My question on that is, I guess it would be more for Darling. And Mr. Jenniger, how deeply involved are we required by law to have an Interior Health Authority to be involved with this?
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, the Health Authority has certain requirements that we have to follow. We have to meet their certain recommendations or certain criteria, but how we do that is up to us. And it's far easier to argue with them if we keep them informed, follow the process, and then if we don't agree with something, to argue our points and get them to back off than it is to keep them not informed and then try to slip something in behind. And I just found it's very successful. And I think Bob would agree, is that the more you keep them informed right up front, let them know the initial meetings are really going to be about Town Creek and the wells and what kind of testing are they going to need, or what kind of, you know, information are they going to need to you know, certify those well scores. And you know, it's really not about their approval. We already know the criteria we have to meet, but we don't want to go out and do a whole bunch of testing and then find out, well, there's certain other testing that they needed. So it's just part of the process. We've done it before. We do deal with them all the time. And we just find the more you keep them involved, the easier it is to get them to agree with what you're recommending.
No, I understand that. I certainly wouldn't suggest that we try and slip something behind them, but based on my extensive experience like yours, the worst thing you can do is ask a government bureaucracy to have input in something. But we already know, and my problem is with the wording. If I look here at item 2 and commence discussions with IHA as to what requirements IHA may have in developing the preferred options. From my perspective, this is a very well done report. You already know what the options are. And to me, it should be a no-brainer to Interior Health. And instead of asking them outright to give us information, say, here we are, here's a report, happy to receive feedback and concerns, blah, blah, blah. And if you look at item 3, He outlines the results of the discussion with IHA, benefits, detriment, financial, blah, 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 the two preferred waters simultaneous. From my perspective, again, I think this is a brilliant report, very all-encompassing. Interior Health gets a copy of it, and we request that they review it, and if they have concerns or anything to benefit, happy to have it and discuss it. But I just feel, boy, I'm for opening the door and saying, bring your excrement here and dump it on my lap and we'll talk for 3 months. Don, I know I'm overreacting, but I'm serious about this.
I mean,
I've been burnt, and we don't do that kind of thing in certain.
we have to talk to IHA
I agree.
and, but if you want to strike those two.
Well, that's my preference and the
Recommendations.
rest of council, and you have to be happy with it, obviously, because.
Well,
you're the one
we have to talk to them. So, I mean, we're just spelling out that's what's gonna happen. As far as the third one, it's just that we're gonna provide information to council on what IHA wants. They've got nothing to do about the process or funding. I mean, that's the initial information we're gonna bring back to you. That's not outlined in the report.
Right.
But, we have to talk to IHA whether, we just put that in so that you knew that we were going to, but if, I mean, you could change the word requirements to guidelines. That cuts it a little lower, or you could take the recommendation right out and just leave it just with the one recommendation.
Well, as I say, that's just my personal preference. The other councillors may be quite happy with this and we'll end up voting on it, but I just say, obviously, they have input. It's how we encourage it and what we expect. That's all that I sort of feel. But councillors, if you're happy with the way it is, I'll read it out and we'll vote on it. Yes, Councillor Hoppel.
I'm fine with changing it to and commence discussions with IHA as to what guidelines IHA may have in developing the preferred options. I'm fine with that.
Well, even that wording gets up my nose too. We've got, oh, no, listen, we have exceptional people working on
We do.
this that are experienced, know what the heck they're doing. A brilliant report. The last thing I gotta do is ask someone sitting in an office that doesn't have the experience that these two individuals do and say, now we want you to, throw your muck in the written thing here. Again, it's just my preference, but whatever council wants, I'm all for it.
So you just don't want to open up a can of worms that, you can just kind of
Yeah.
pack away.
If I may. How about the second one, that staff provide Interior Health Authority with a copy of the source water strategy report, period.
That to me is ideal.
I gets rid of all
They
the
can
other
do
stuff.
with us, because maybe they might be busy and say, oh, that's okay, they're doing fine. Bob's your uncle, where you go? I don't know. If, the point is that, Mr. Darling, you have to be happy with it because you're the one we're relying on.
I'm happy as long as you know that we're gonna be talking with IHA.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the next one, we could also.
But I don't want to marry them.
Yeah,
I just
yeah,
want
we
to.
could- For the next one, we could say that, for the third one, that staff submit a subsequent report to council for consideration that outlines the recommended process that should be followed and get rid of the discussions with IHA, because we're gonna tell you about that anyway.
If you're happy with it, the rest of
Yeah, I got
council's
no
happy
problems
with
with
it, I
it.
like
Okay,
that.
fine, sure.
Counselors,
Sounds good.
Mr. Taylor, how do we?
Already dealt with.
Sorry, Mr. Darling, thank you.
Good job.
You've lowered my blood pressure.
You can make the motion as I have it,
And you will read it, or no, as read,
as read.
okay? Need someone to move that the source water strategy report be adopted to provide staff with a framework to develop alternate feasible, functional, and cost-effective additional sources of water to improve the reliability of Lillooet's water supply, and items 2 and 3 as read. Who will so move? Councillor Hoppel, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? Are you satisfied with that, Mr. Taylor?
I am, thank you.
Call the question. All those in favor? Thank you. Thank you both. Appreciate it. I
Good
concur with
job,
the rest of
for
council.
sure.
We've got something we can chew and we understand.
Thank you.
There you go. I'm just kidding.
You're going to dinner.
Okay, we'll move to item 12.1, permissive tax exemption bylaw 2022-016-2023 tax year.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Now that I'm aware how you feel about government bureaucracies. As a government bureaucrat, I'm going to weigh in on what you should do with these permissive tax exemptions. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As we do every year, notice was posted for these nonprofit organizations and societies looking to apply to council for permissive tax exemptions. Last year, council granted a 2-year exemption to all of the applicants, with the exemption of the Legion, which was given a 1-year exemption on their properties as it was in the midst of a sale. The Legion properties have applied again, this time under the umbrella of the Lillooet Friendship Center. Staff are recommending granting the exemption on these properties for the 1 year, for this next 1 year, the 2023 tax year, to give this society a little more time to devise the proposal for the properties. In the interim, while we can't permit it in its current form as a shelter, it was activated as an emergency shelter during the most recent Lytton evacuation, which took a large amount of pressure and time off of district EOC staff to find accommodation. The Lillooet Friendship Center Society has been instrumental in the last 3 years in providing those services that the EOC is not set up itself to provide. The new addition to the permissive tax exemptions this year is the Lillooet and District Rescue Society at 272 Main Street. The Rescue Society works closely with our emergency services to provide rapid first response to incidents in and around Lillooet. The way council may wish to look at PTEs is, would this service cost the district more than the exemption to run the service being provided by these societies? In the cases of operating a shelter and a rescue service, I would imagine that the cost would be significantly higher for us to run through taxation. Staff will be working with the Friendship Center Society over the next year to determine what the long-term goal is and whether or not we will be recommending a 4-year exemption on a very prominent piece of gateway property on Main Street. However, it is appropriate to give them at least a year, given the value that the district has already received during the recent EOC evacuations. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And at this point, it is appropriate to open the floor to any applicants who may wish to speak to their applications, although it is not required.
As it's related to this.
Speaking to their application of the bylaws.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Taylor. Is there anyone who would like to come forward and speak to the permissive tax exemption bylaw that we've just outlined?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of council. I am Don Blakey. I am the current chair of the Lillooet District Rescue Society, and I'm also deputy chief and member of the group. We thank you for considering our application for permissive tax exemption. 272 Main Street is our new home this year. We just successfully moved into it after many years of working with budgets, fundraising, getting grants. We now have a permanent home. This permanent home has resulted in us shaving approximately 10 minutes on average per call off our response time, as most of our membership lives on this side of the bridge from where our previous location was. This permissive tax application would be very beneficial to our group. As we are a nonprofit, we are constantly looking and having to replace ropes, helmets, other safety gear to keep our membership safe. We also have to use the funds that we get in order to upgrade and keep up our training at all times. We are currently on a 3-year cycle where we have to retrain and recertify each time in Swiftwater, steep angle, rope rescue, and also Jaws of Life training. So in order to keep all of our membership and our new members up, it's costly. So any help that we can get via this application to help us out also helps us provide our services to the community. And we thank you for the consideration of this application.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to come forward to speak to this permissive tax exemption bylaw? They are hearing none. Thank you. Before I go on, I just want to commend you and on you and the rest of your group on behalf of council that your rescue society is an important facet of our community. We're very fortunate to have that. We're really happy that you found a home. And want to see that highlighted. I know you've had some very challenging rescue missions on the past year and a bit. And it's always comforting to know that you guys are there, that you're well trained and people that care about the people of the community. We're fortunate to have you. Thank you. Okay, I'm going to read out. Staff recommends that the permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2022-016 be introduced and read a first and second time. Who will move? Councillor Leach, second Councillor Howe. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Also, I need someone to move the permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2022-016 be read a third time. Moves Councillor Hupel, second Councillor Howe. Further discussion? See none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carries and thank you. Thank you. We'll move to item 12.2, permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2021-026, amendment bylaw number 2022-015.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bylaw 2022-015 is a technical amendment to last year's permissive tax exemption bylaw 2021-026. Nothing much to consider here. A tax roll number changed after the bylaw was adopted, and the BC Assessment Authority has requested that the district amend the bylaw to reflect the new roll number. This will not have any effect on the PTEs, and the property will still receive an exemption for this year and will have to reapply in 2023.
Oh, thank you, Mr. Taylor. I was waiting for the explanation. It still begs the question, did it really have to come to council? Couldn't you guys just go ahead and do that?
Any bylaw amendment has to go to council. That is not something that can be delegated to staff under any authority.
Okay. Oh, well, thank you.
Thank you.
Any questions, comments from councilors? Need someone to move that permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2021-026, amendment bylaw number 2022-015 be introduced and read a first and second time. Councillor Hopple, second Councillor Weed. Any further discussion? Call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Someone please move that the permissive tax exemption bylaw number 2021-026, amendment bylaw number 2022-015 be read a third time. Councillor Weed, second Councillor Leach. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you. Move to item 12.3, Z22-003, Little Rec Society Motorsports Track.
We're gonna have nothing to add from the public hearing presentation.
Okay. Any further questions or discussion by councillor or staff? Yes, Councillor Howe.
Through the mayor, more just a comment to council. 1199 Whitney Road. I just want a moment to take a look at where that is in reference to the proposed area. Just because if they are one of the closest houses, I think before the adjust they have to say, strongly consider their request for the changed hours.
I think it's right above.
Yeah, I think it's above on the terrace. Right beside it.
And the point is, I think if you recall the explanation that Mr. Taylor gave to that thing is, look, we can leave it as such.
Yeah.
And give it a shot, and if it does cause problems from the noise, we can bring it back to council. But I take your point, but Whitney Road is right up on the top. My house and our houses are more exposed, doesn't mean that we aren't concerned, but I love that kind of noise. It goes along with 12 blade slugs that are going on breakfast time in the morning. Anyone else want to go?
A little nervous.
Go ahead. Councilor Hopple.
Well, okay, so I had to I agree with Councilor Hall with the Edward Cullen. He did a really good job. And I get what he's saying. You know, I couldn't imagine listening to that kind of noise Saturday and Sunday all day. But my question is, because I do support this and I think it's an awesome commitment for them to do. And we did send, I just want to verify, we did send letters to all the people along in that, the houses right up to Mayor Bussey's, right?
Yes, any properties within 100 meters of the property boundary.
Oh, 100 meters. So how many properties would that be? Sorry.
If anyone has any additional questions, I can look that up and
Okay. Oh, okay, so it's only 2 or 3 properties. It didn't go to, I assumed that it went to all the properties on that road.
But it would be posted, it's posted in the paper and. I
It
mean,
was.
We had input from far away, right?
There's a large sign put on the property
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
So anyone on Airport Road drove past the sign.
Right, so one of the options was the temporary use permit for a maximum of 3 years before consideration of renewal for 3 years. So is that what you were talking about, Mr. Taylor, when you said, you know, we can see how it goes? Can we do it on a yearly basis and just kind of see how it goes? Maybe a 2-year basis, because I don't think anything will happen. We're going into, you know, fall and winter now. So they wouldn't really be able to gauge that until we've done a whole year.
Yes, a temporary use permit can be issued for up to 3 years. It could be a year,
Right.
it could be 2 years. That is kind of restarting the whole process though. So temporary use permit was something that I suggested about 2 months ago,
Right.
which also requires a public hearing. It's basically a pseudo rezoning that expires. So that would be starting the process again in December, or October, but then
Right.
probably December, because it's not great to have those things go through an election, because then you've got a council that's having to deal with a public hearing.
Okay.
If I could say as well, the downside of a temporary use permit from the applicant's perspective, well, actually the applicant. From the interested party's perspective is that it's no assurance then to their investment property. That's right. For that
Fair enough.
purpose. So what's being proposed by staff right now is a time frame in which the activity can occur, not necessarily will occur, but it could occur in these time periods. And their investment is then something that's worth investing in because they know the zoning is actually changing to that. And then if there's a problem with the hours of operations, it would obviously probably start with just a conversation with the society about neighbors are finding this disruptive when you're doing it this late, can you confine your hours? Failing that, the bylaw could then be amended, say next year, after some experience is had with it, to narrow down that time period, much like a construction timber that's right now. I think this probably actually aligns with that construction area. By times, so we could bring it to council to narrow down that time frame, but the use is still allowed. Their investment is still a good investment in infrastructure.
Okay.
And we just bring down those hours from next spring, next fall, after we have that experience. But they don't need to worry then, this future council going to pull the rug out from underneath of everything that they've invested.
Okay, fair enough. So I think that's a really good plan. And I just want to give some sort of timeline where people can actually hear what's going on, because it might not be anything, right? It might not be like, you know, during the hours, you know, who knows? So, and it might be if everybody especially is involved, well, not Mayor Bussey, but you know, it might be turning them on or something, but you know, I think that it's a good omen, really, if we can allow people to just give us their opinion back in a year.
Before Councilor Al, yes, Mr. Taylor?
And just to circle back, there were 11 properties that were captured within the notification area.
Okay, so they were all of them.
Any that were within the buffer area.
Okay, yeah, all right, thank you.
Councilor Al?
Through the mayor to staff, what does that process look like if there is noise? Like, let's say, 1199 Whitney Road comes back and says, you know what, we're really not happy with the noise. It is indeed quite loud. What does that look like on staff's end? Are we taking what they have to say very seriously? Is it coming back to council? it's but one voice, so it's kind of like, sure, but nobody else is complaining. So
Counselor
that-
Howard, you
What is
heard
the process actually look like?
Mr. Demigar said, the first step would be a discussion with the society, East Lillooet Rec Society, to say there are complaints.
Mhm,
Can you tone it down? Can you do whatever?
mhm.
And if it's still complaints, then it can come back to council with staff recommendation to change hours or do whatever. So. Make sense?
Uh, Yeah.
The formality of how they may want to correspond with us about it is really up to them. They might just want to call me and talk to me about it, and then I'll say, hey, let me talk to the society about it.
mhm.
If it becomes more contentious or there's a formality that they desire to it, I would recommend to them that they actually fill in a bylaw complaint form,
Mhm.
which we wouldn't process beyond reading it because it would be found to be in compliance with the bylaw. But we then have an official record of it. And if we start receiving those from different residents around the area, if it's a noise complaint, we actually have to receive currently in the bylaw 2 complaints before we react to different property owners. So if that were triggered, we would then have that in the records. Plus, senior staff are aware of this property that's happening to it. It's not a small issue. This is a big change. So we'll notice those things. We'll be looking at those records. And if they start building up, we're going to go, hey, okay, we need to bring this to council.
Okay, so it sounds like it would be still, quite a process, and not so cut and dry, so I don't know, I do like the hours that, Mr. Collin has suggested. Especially when it comes to Saturday and Sunday.
Okay. Well, do you want to put change the motion then? Or addendum to the motion?
If this is changed now, we have to
That's what I
go back to
figured, yeah.
public hearing and re-notify it.
Besides, if there's noise complaints there, I can guarantee you I'm gonna get them before the staff does, so
Yeah, but you've got like a month left, so really.
there you go. I'll still get them after too, I'm sure. All right, we'll let Counselor Weed speak.
Well, part of me is thinking out loud here all of a sudden. I'm thinking once it's contained on an actual site, there's going to be less of the buzz, like right now, they're all over the place out there, right? Now it's going to kind of be regulated to certain hours, certain days on a certain site. So to me, it would be less disruptive than, I mean, they can be out there buzzing around at all times of the day and night right now. They're just out there everywhere on all the roads and back trails and I mean, they're doing it as we speak. Let's put it that way. So this is just regulating it to a certain site, certain times. And it's going to me, it's going to be more contained and, you know, I'm quite willing to pass it. And if there's more complaints, then talk to the society and take care of it at that time. But I think it's going to be less disruptive actually being contained on the site.
Okay, thank you, Counselor Weed. Counselor, before I come to you, Counselor Howell, Counselor Wapo.
Okay, but with that discussion, they could go into that contained area. And then when it comes 7 o'clock at night, then they can still go up in the trees. Like, I don't think that that's gonna deter too much, but I don't know. I'm just a little bit worried about people that live there. I mean, they pay huge taxes as well too. And I just want to make sure that can they, through the mayor, can they file a complaint, a bylaw complaint, if the noise is within the bylaw hours? Are they still viable complaints?
It'd be pretty hard to say that it's a noise complaint. The activity itself is the noise.
Is the noise
Much
and
like
they're
a construction
allowed,
zone.
right? So we extend the hours and then they have the noise and then somebody complains about the noise. I just want to figure out how we can have some sort of,
It would be very much like construction. If they're building a building there and it's gonna take them a year to build the building, there
Right.
could be noise right down in the exact same timeframe.
Right.
Nothing in the file in the plan to do about that, except for that conversation that we have as a person to a person in the community. Hey, this is disruptive to the neighbors. Can you reduce your hours? But again, much like a construction bylaw, and the times that come with that, section or noise nuisance bylaw, we can bring that back to council if we receive complaint after complaint after complaint. We would bring that noise bylaw back to council and go, look, this is problematic. We need to tighten up those hours.
Okay, as long as they haven't out these,
It's not something that's gonna be dismissed. If it's a real problem for the neighborhood, it will be dealt with. And I suspect the society doesn't want to have upset neighbors,
no,
right?
no.
We're a big part of this community, trying to create a positive space for it. So if there's issues and contention, neighbors will not be surprised if they follow what they're hearing, that we're hearing. From neighbors,
Right.
so being more respectful to each other.
Okay, Mr. Taylor first.
Mr. Mayor, just two things while I was reviewing this application. The site is quite heavily treed, which itself acts as a noise barrier from most of the properties that are behind it at least. That is not the same with the shooting range, which is a little more open, so that does create less of a sound barrier. The other thing about the complaints coming forward is much like this application, it didn't come from staff, it came from council. And I have found that if people are displeased with something, council is often made aware of it, and they are, of course, welcome to bring forward those concerns themselves to council.
Exactly. Thank you very much. Councillor Howe.
Yes, through the mayor. Question to staff, did the hours proposed, the original hours proposed, did that come from the society or are these just hours that administrations come up with?
As part of the drafting of the bylaw, I felt that some limits had to be placed on the noise, so I looked sort of to what other references that we had, and the nuisance bylaw was the only thing that did curtail other noises within the district, so I thought for the purpose of this bylaw, let's stay consistent. And then again, if it does become a problem, the hours of operation aren't something that would be protected under legal nonconformity in the Local Government Act. So if we do change those hours, then they would have to abide by them, and if they don't, then bylaw could take enforcement action.
So being that we're the ones setting the hours, could we not just work essentially backwards? So we'll set these hours, and if we come to find that it's really not very noisy at all, and you know, the homeowner is perfectly fine with the noise and is comfortable with extending those hours, we would then do that instead.
It's possible it just undoes the whole process we just went through.
Exactly.
And that's which staff that we're going
But
now.
wait a minute, how many complaints were there about the hour or requests for change for the hours?
Just the one.
One. How many were in support of the way it is?
Including that one, 31.
31.
Yeah,
So
it's the-
30 were okay with it, one was against it, you want to change the whole thing?
But they don't-
Councillor Leach next.
So while I'm fully, I understand where this debate is going, I also, I can't help but also think in the back of my mind, this particular, property that's provided some feedback is the farm up in the area. And they themselves have had, some points with neighbors to work out issues. And so I think that neighborhood itself probably already has a pretty decent, set up on how to talk to one another and communicate. And I don't know, I think that there's a lot of people that are within these forms that do live in the area. And I haven't heard anything, property owners in the area where they were opposed to this. And so I think that we're chasing a tail if we were to go backwards. And we did ask staff to put forward this bylaw at the district's expense to get this going faster for the society. So
Any other comments, questions?
You know,
Okay. Then I will table it, we'll vote. Want somebody to move the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018 number 454, amending bylaw number 2022-014 be read a third time. Who so moves? Counselor Howe, second Counselor Hoffel. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. All those in favor? Yeah, carried. Thank you. Okay. Someone please move that the District of Lillooet zoning bylaw 2018, number 454, amending bylaw number 2022-014 be adopted. Counselor Weed, second Counselor Leach. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. Those in favor? Yes. Thank you. Carried. Okay, we'll move to the reports from the mayor. August 31st, I had a Zoom call with Vanessa Carrington of Clear Course regarding Chinese Memorial Grant. And on September 1st, I had a face-to-face meeting with our MP Brad Biss. Okay, Councillor Hoppel.
Okay, I just actually wanted to speak about UBCM next week, so I'll be tending to push both resolutions through to the provincial government. However, I'll talk about this other resolution, with the, correspondence edition. So I will be pushing the harsher penalties for repeat offenders approved through our council, SILGA, and very well supported. And that is my primary reason for going to UBCM, to speak to the resolution table. And the other thing I wanted to do was speak to the Ministry of Transportation and Infrastructure to discuss the state of Highway 99 South from Lillooet to Pemberton, that road, and in particular from Blowdown turnaround to the Joffrey Lake parking lot. So I just drove that road a couple of times last week. And it is, yeah, it's in really bad shape, but I noticed it was primarily from the Blowdown turnaround to Joffrey parking lot. And I think that if we go at the ministry saying, you know, we want the whole road done, I mean, there's other sections there, there's, you know, little bits and pieces that could definitely use a redo, but I think if we just kind of contain it to that one spot, because that truly is the worst. And, you know, I'm going to give them a little bit of a history about that road too. I found out that that road was actually a forest road that went from Pemberton up to the Joffrey Lake and went from Lillooet up to, where was it? I think it's called Solista Creek or Saline Creek or something. But anyways, and in the 1980s, they decided to join that road. And that road, the roads up both sides were actually made, like all the fill was tree stumps and all the forest floor products under there. And then they joined the road at the top, they paved it, adding to, you know, Highway 99 South up to Lillooet, and that was in 1992. So I think there's a lot of history there, and I don't think a lot of people, especially ministers that are sitting, you know, in Vancouver in their offices, realize what is below that road and why that road is so crumbly. And so I've got a big report that I'm going to talk to the Ministry of Transportation about. And I've got a report and I will make copies so that I can give it to them on a little bit different colored paper too, so they can just slide it into their little pile of, you know, I think Mayor Bussey calls it the dating,
Oh, yeah,
speed dating, right? So, yes. Anyways, that's it for me. Thanks.
Councillor Howe.
It has been a very calm month. Nothing to report.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Leach.
On August 24th, SILGA board meeting, and it is confirmed that SILGA will be meeting with Minister Farnsworth regarding community, the community housing. I didn't write that in that thing. So community housing to support residents of low income and subsidized housing. We're also meeting with Minister Rice and MLA Russell for mitigation funding for fire and flood, and also with Minister Lana Popham regarding agriculture and food. So that's coming from the basis of the collective of the Southern Interior Government Association of the entire area. And then again on the 24th, I popped out of the SILGA meeting to attend the Ukrainian flag raising district office. Thank you to our CEO for that. And then I also a couple weeks ago got an email from a UBCM staffer that I'm in contact with through my roundtable. And I had originally, when they did the call out for topic ideas for the small talk forum, I had submitted not a proposal, as a rough draft of some topics to discuss after coming out of the Outreach Health Services opioid forum here. And anyway, I heard back from Bahar last week, and he's actually asked me to speak at the small talk forum. So I'll be speaking, I think 10:20 that morning for a few minutes, just on like information on opioid treatment centers. And then it'll be open up for questions from the membership. So exciting. And then this morning, because I've been in conversations with Blackwell, Mayor Clearwater, if you haven't been listening to the news, it's kind of all over regarding rural communities kind of banding together to fight for better health services across the table. And so this morning, headed by Lori Ackerman of Fort St. John, we met via Zoom. So we're officially forming the Rural Healthcare Alliance group. And we're going to kind of just brainstorm this morning. There was probably 10 of us on the call. We expect some more. And we're going to be having another meeting Friday via Zoom. And Mayor Blackwell wants to bring in the Green MLA Sonia Persino, because she's already toured BC, already has some information about what they've gathered on the road, and also her view on where Mr. Dixon is in terms of what he plans to roll out, because apparently in the health sanitary session that will come in next week, apparently there's going to be some announcements made as well as to where his view of the ministry is going. So it'll be interesting. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Weed.
Well, for a change, I don't have a lot to report. It's been fairly quiet. August 24th, I did attend the flag raising down at the district office. Was an emotional moment. Everything went well. The SLRD gave us a reprieve for August, and we didn't have any SLRD meeting 2 days, so it was lovely, absolutely lovely. I too have a resolution moved forward at UBCM that I will be speaking on, and I also had put a request in. And I can't even remember at the moment which ministry it is, and I don't know at the moment if we're getting a meeting with them or not. And it is also in regards to healthcare, but more about the BC ambulance crisis. I think what's going on with our ambulance and their staff and the holdups and the deaths in Ashcroft, and I don't know if they have a plan, and if they do have a plan, it would really be nice that they share it with us. I know that they have a new communications person that nobody in the rural areas has spoken to or heard from. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to the UBCM moving forward something from our small towns. Basically it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Weed. Okay, to all you councillors that are going to UBCM, happy hunting. Be as persistent with them as you are with me, as you have been for the past almost 4 years. It's going to come away with something. Oh, good. And you might try and enjoy yourself for at least an hour a day. Thank you. We move to 16.1 CAO report.
Thank you. Just 3 items. A final reminder to council and our general public that the nomination period for anyone wanting to run for council, school board, is, the final deadline is this Friday at 4 p.m. sharp. That means any potential candidates' nomination packages must be in the hands of the chief election officer by 4 p.m. this Friday. By law, late applications cannot be accepted, even though City Hall will have its doors open until 4:30. If they come over 1, we can't take your application. Please, spread the word. You only need 2 nominees, but more time. Second point is, I've been holding on to this one for a month. We weren't allowed to share it, and so the province had a chance to say so, but the District of Lillooet was awarded $112,000, 500. From the province for the Community Cares Homeless Shelter, which is being provided by the Little Friendship Center, very much like the one last year. It's carried forward. Funds that were left over from that grant program. So now it's helping. No money, Friendship Center's got to run that shelter. And final and third point is we have a new bylaw officer starting, David Formentini, and he will be starting next Monday, September 12th. 3-day-a-week schedule, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, but that's my 3 big bits of news.
Any questions, comments from council? Councilor Lee?
A question for our CEO. I just forgot to mention something that I wanted to let everyone know about.
Oh,
So
very cool.
if you'll let me.
You got to form us a question to the CAO.
Does the CAO know when school activities will resume?
I don't actually know. I've only been back from vacation for today. Not up to date, but if you know, I'd love to hear.
I would love to inform everyone that school will be back open on September 15th. And there's a new schedule up. Thank you.
Right.
Very good.
Very good question.
Yes.
Through the mayor, so Mr. Deniger, the David Formentini, new bylaw officer, what is his hours gonna be?
That's still going to be in discussion.
Okay, and the days of the week too? Or is it gonna be a Monday to Friday and then we'll work out the,
We're hoping for a Monday, Wednesday, Friday schedule because it
Okay.
gives the greatest amount of coverage.
right?
Because it is part-time and you have other commitments.
Right.
We're gonna have to work.
And lastly, does he live here or is he moving here or is he out of town? Is he shared?
Currently out of town, but looking for perhaps moving.
Okay, great, thanks.
I don't know how to form it as a question. And I don't even know if it's the appropriate time to say it.
Might as well. Before we move on, go ahead.
I believe unless there's any other special council meetings or committee of the holes or anything coming up, and with us being away all next week, I just wanted to say, because we will have no more meetings with you, even though you're here until that date.
Don't we have one more?
Next
We
Monday.
have one more in October.
Yeah.
The last regular council meeting of the year is October 4th at 5 p.m. in this room.
Oh, okay, well.
Well, you're not coming.
I was gonna miss all your sense of humor and your quirkiness and your arguing about the government.
Okay, then you don't have to bring that up at the,
I will bring it up on the October 4th. I've got it in my calendar now.
okay, thank you. Okay, we'll move to item 17.1. Councilor Hoffel.
Thank you. So this was kind of an announcement a little bit ago, but it became official July 25th. And it was a letter through Brittany when Brad Viss took this to Parliament. So this was about the better forest management. It was a petition that we did, and I'm sure it's just not all the petition. And they said, wow, she wrote a petition and got all these signatures, so we're gonna give them all this money. I don't think it would happen like that. But I'd like to say that, you know, I think a voice and the community that got together with this, and we really pushed this, and Chief Darren Oiki, he was all over. He spent a lot of time with me trying to helped me with the letter, helped me with the petition, and really showed me what we need as a community. And, everything that, well, pretty much everything that we had asked for, they heard that. And so I just wanted to let you know. So province of BC providing 145 million in new funding to strengthen BC's emergency management and wildlife services, including transforming the BC Wildfire Service into a year-round all hazards organization. And that was a big thing. That was one firefighter telling me that she said, hey, I go to work and then I've got 6 months off and I'm on EI. And while that might be federal, why don't we put that all together? Let me work 12 months of the year. And that kind of became the basis of that part of it. And like I said, they listened to it. I wrote that a year ago and here it is. So, I was really, really happy to hear that. The other part was 90 million in community grants for the Fire Smart program. That is huge too. $90 million is, and that Fire Smart program that Lillock, already has is going to be a big asset to a lot of other communities. And then further, an additional 98 million investment will go into the wildfire prevention work and help maintain Forest Service roads used to respond to forest fires. So I think those are all great things. I still hope that they watch those videos online and that they actually talk to the people on the ground and not just, the tops of all these departments and that kind of thing. But work in progress. Again, I will have to talk to Mr. Deniger about what I'm going to do with this resolution at UBCM, if we can pull it, or if I can just, maybe we still need to support this initiative. But anyways, I just wanted you guys to know that, a little bit sometimes goes a long way. Thanks.
So you're not recommending a solution here now, so this is basically for information for all.
Well, it's already on the resolution list.
Okay.
So it's already in the lineup. So
For business of today,
I just wanted you guys to know, like, what had happened and how,
accept the letter.
right, just to accept the letter, and
Okay.
that, Chief Oiki was a big asset to me and in helping me kind of figure out what they needed, because
So I take it you will move that we accept.
the letter,
Outlined by
yes,
you.
yes.
Who will second? Counselor Howe. For council to return. Trip. Any further discussion? If none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Carried. Thank you, Counselor Huckle.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll move to item 18. It's now open. The meeting is now open to questions from the media and public. They're hearing none. Then I need someone to move that the September 6, 2022 regular council meeting be adjourned at this time. Counselor Williams, second. Counselor Huckle. I'll call the question. All those in favor? Carried. Thank you, and thank you for coming, folks. Enjoy your evening.